Hello, and welcome to Split Your Head. I'm your host, Bob, and today's guests, plural, are none other than Amy Hensarling and Jetta Weinstein. These two made appearances on the first season of Split Your Head and have been waiting for the right opportunity to get them back on. Lo and behold, one of Amy's newest podcast offerings dropped, She Said/She Said, a female-focused series inspired by the fruitful discussions bubbling up around Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things, which I think we can all agree was one of the best films of 2023.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
So yes, the first episode was an absolute banger with Jetta and Amy dissecting the to-do list and the diary of a teenage girl. Once I heard it, I immediately thought I need to have these two on to dissect some horror flicks as soon as possible. So Jetta picked Antonia Bird's 1999 Civil War cannibal romp, Ravenous, and William Friedkin's 2006 psychological chamber nightmare, Bug. Let's go. How are you both doing?
What an introduction.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Bada bing, bada boom.
You need to come on and introduce everything I do, please.
Everything.
Yeah.
Amy is here today to renew her license. She's been driving for 12 years of her life, and she's an excellent... on and so
exactly.
forth. Okay.
You can also go on job interviews, introduce me before I walk in. Yeah.
I could do that, yeah.
You're just
for
an introductory sort of guy. Oh, of course, not for free. Don't do anything for free.
No, never.
I would love that too. Just like have someone with me at all times to introduce me professionally.
Introduce you? Yeah. Yeah. Jetta,
Well,
you'd be
thank
great
you.
at that too, actually.
Yeah.
But Bob was more prepared.
The great thing about this is that I gassed you both up, and then you just gassed me up in return. And I really appreciate that reciprocity. I feel like
Mutual.
it's going to lead to a good discussion today, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's start. How are you both doing?
Good. Jetta, how are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to have a weekend off, just like be away from my job, talk about movies, the greatest joy you could have. So I'm good.
Yeah. And it was your choice, Jetta. I mean, Amy definitely had some input on it, but you were the one who said, Ravenous and Bug need to be dissected.
Yes.
And you had a thematic through line for both, which was toxic relationships.
Yeah,
I
think, I mean, you can think of it in different ways because of the different places that Bug and Ravenous go, because they both cover that all-consuming passion idea, but in very different ways ultimately. So, you can start with toxicity, but then really pick apart where those ideas go and whether they actually say toxicity, or in Ravenous's case, is there some subtext, which could be text. So, different directions ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, I do think Ravenous probably had a lot more metaphorical kind of things going on than Bug necessarily. I mean, a Bug definitely had a lot of metaphorical qualities, but I found that you could just take it at face value as a depiction of like mental health deteriorating. And because of that, I found it was like pretty upsetting to watch.
It's extremely upsetting.
Yeah. It's a tough one. But yeah, Ravenous, we should really like zone in on that one. So Ravenous, the 1999 film from Antonia Bird. How was it received, more or less? Because it seems like the tone was just so bizarre. Like, how did people really take this one in?
Big flop. Big
Shocker
failure.
for Jetta's choice.
Yeah,
it was a flop upon release.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, it's one that's become a cult classic over the years for sure. But there was a problem even from the beginning because there was a different director attached, Milko Manchevsky, but he wanted something much darker, and Fox decided they wanted something goofier and funnier because David Arquette was in it and they wanted another Scream. Which is weird because this is nothing like Scream.
Gosh.
But they were like, horror comedy, that'll attract the young people, the same Scream demographic. So ultimately they went with Antonia Bird instead, but then there were issues with filming because how much of it should be comedic and how much of it should stick to the gruesome horror. So even behind the scenes, it was a problem. So I think you see that in the critical response to it, like, we don't know what this is supposed to be. And audiences probably felt like they don't get it either. But it has definitely attracted a fan base over the years. So more and more people are appreciating just how fascinating it is, because it is a truly fascinating film.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I did watch it when it came out on VHS, and it was for the exact reasons you just outlined. That, oh my god, it's David Arquette from Scream. I was obsessed with Scream. I also was like super into Train Spotting, and so I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
Robert Carlyle. I think at that point I had seen Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and that was Guy Pearce that was in that as well. So I was like, oh, it's that dude too. Like, I love all these movies. And I went in expecting a horror movie. And it's funny because like Scream is like a horror comedy, finger quotes to the people listening, but it's, to me, the tone of Scream feels a lot more like straightforward in a horror sense. Whereas I found like the tone of Ravenous was way more like, oh, now it's a comedy. Like now it's completely shifted. Like Scream is to me like a horror movie with jokes, whereas like Ravenous is like a horror comedy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you felt that, Amy, right? You texted me, you were like, this is a comedy? And I was like, yeah, it is a comedy. There's so much, like, strange, silly, yeah.
Part of the reason for that is the score, though. It's just so unhinged.
Yeah.
I don't think that, I mean, I think that the score is what, like, just completely jars you and takes you, it makes you receive the information very differently than if it had been like somber or creepy. Like if John Carpenter had done this score, it'd be a completely different movie. I don't even know that it'd be funny at all. So a lot of this has to do with like the music and the atmosphere and the tone that contributes to where you're like, I'm not entirely sure how I'm supposed to react right now. So you laugh. You know, when you're uncomfortable and you don't know how to react, you laugh.
And Robert Carlyle, the way that he delivers all his lines and the way he just draws you in because he's so charismatic and it's funny. I mean, he's doing it with a grin. So you really get that sense from him. If it was played in a different way, if he was being much darker and more serious, then you wouldn't receive all of what he's doing in that same way. But because he's doing it all with a sinister smile, you really get the satirical edge to it. Right?
Question for you both then. Do you think that if the film was edited differently and had a different score, that the comedic aspect would have been as prominent?
I don't, but I don't know if Jetta does.
Well, I think you would have to change a lot of what Robert Carlyle is doing in his performance, because I think he was probably, because he had a relationship, having worked with Antonia Bird over years, they knew each other so well, and I think he wanted to craft his character maybe more to the way she saw it. I think he would have to have been told, do it differently, because if you still have him playing his character in that way, I think it still comes out funny. I think you would have to have just an entirely different antagonist. Because he's really playing off of Guy Pearce, well, the straight man, so to speak. He's really playing off of what Robert Carlyle is doing, right? You've got this way over the top character, and then you've got the person reacting.
Yeah.
And I think it would be different if you just didn't have that same push and pull. So
Sure.
Yeah, it would need a different script or a different, retelling of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I watched it the other night, I didn't really find Robert Carlyle that funny, but I will say that after reading your review, Jetta, where you explained like the queer subtext to it, I now see the camp of what he's doing more, and I wonder if I watch it again thinking like, oh, there's something deeper here, and it has to do with like repressed sexuality, that I think I would find more of the humor in the film.
I mean, they do literally roll in the hay at the end.
Well, yeah. That's the thing. It didn't really cross my mind till the end. But when I read your review, I was like, oh my God, it's so, like, I just did. Okay, you know what it was that my mind was searching for the metaphor. And I found it was more of like a platonic, like Plato's, like just and unjust man kind of situation. Like I thought, because he actually does reference, I think they reference Plato and Socrates. Yeah. And so when he said that, when Jeffrey Jones and Guy Pearce had that conversation at the end, it kind of confirmed what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, this movie is really just about like the struggles of morality and how on one hand, like Guy Pearce knows it's wrong to do these things, is trying to fight it, and on the other hand, Robert Carlyle is like, no, if I do all these wrong things, then I can get whatever I want. I just didn't realize that connected to sexuality,
Well,
you know?
I mean, I think, Amy, you can probably speak to what you thought as well, but you can read it on the surface as just good versus evil, but you can also read more into it and wonder, how much does Guy Pearce's character really want to be like Robert Carlyle's character? Is he denying the cannibalism in him? Like, is it that he's being pushed toward it, or does he want it? And in the end, maybe he's just deciding, no, I'm not going to do it. So, I mean, but you can just read it as protagonist, antagonist on the surface.
Yeah.
And what did you think, Amy, when you watched?
I knew that there had to be some sort of subtext if it's a Jetta film.
Yeah, that is true. I did kind of guide you toward it when I suggested it. So I think I planted the seed. Yeah.
Like, I often will watch movies where my mom is here and she is like, that's a Jetta film. And so that's a thing around this household. It's like, oh, this is a Jetta movie. I literally said today, like, Mom, do you think I'd like Flashdance? And she's like, did Jetta tell you to watch that? So this is what we're dealing with. Okay. So I will say that going into Ravenous, I knew probably, I didn't know exactly, but I knew probably there was going to be some sort of either repression or some sort of twist on what I would consider maybe a generic or formulaic portrayal. So I was looking for that. And then, of course, I saw it because I was looking for it. So, but I do think that whether intentional or not, you could definitely read that and feel like it's justified. Like you're not just projecting onto something just because you want to see it there. I think there's enough there.
There's chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe Guy Pearce is just like he seems very confused and kind of moldable. Like he doesn't seem fully formed as a person. So he seems quite susceptible to suggestion in whatever way somebody around him happens to be. So that's kind of like the way that he's set up is not as though he has like a concrete identity anyway.
Literally the first thing we learn about him in the movie is that he's getting a medal for valor, but it wasn't
and he doesn't feel that he did.
Yeah, what he did was play dead on the battlefield, and he just survived as best as he could. So what he's being told about what masculinity means is not actually accurate to his own experience, but he's going along with what it is. And similarly, later in the movie, when he's told that what he experienced isn't what society would want to hear about the experience, they want him to lie about what he saw, what he felt, because nobody wants to know about cannibalism. Nobody wants to know about the truth. Yeah. So he's got to repress things. He's got to try and be the man who society wants him to be. So I think that's all baked in there, for sure.
But I think maybe why I didn't go directly to the metaphor being about like homosexuality was because like cannibalism is like objectively horrible. Do you know what I mean? So to make it a metaphor for like homosexuality is just like
seems like diminutive to it.
Yeah,
like it's like saying that
like,
it's
This is when I can start pulling from readings.
Here we go.
Oh, please do. Okay. Please do.
So there was a blog a few years ago that went over, it's called Gaily Dreadful. It's all about observing horror movies in the context of queer subtext and personal interest. And this writer, Samantha McLaren, she wrote, "The moment when Ives makes eye contact with Boyd, puts his fingers in his mouth and sucks them, a deeply erotic moment, bordering on a straight-up orgasm, one which suggests that a different kind of hunger is brewing inside him."
Wow.
Right? It's a hunger that neither heart nor the brief company of ill-fated travelers can satisfy. And later, this is interesting, "The act of taking the body of another into one's own is inherently intimate, so it's no surprise that the lines between love and cannibalism quickly become blurred in both texts." This is also about Hannibal. As the cannibals struggle to reconcile their conflicting desires. Robert Carlyle puts it best, and in the most Scottish way possible, in an interview where he acknowledges that he saw the homoerotic subtext in Ravenous from the very beginning, saying, "Ives Disney just want to eat Guy Pearce. He was going to have Guy Pearce at the same time." So
Jetta, you're so
So this is fascinating,
so
right? There is
It is, yeah, it's cool.
there is an intimacy in this, like the idea of all consuming. It can be literal in terms of consuming food, but also the physicality of bodies. And so there is
Yeah.
this sexual component too, besides just like killing. So you can read into it what you want to, and it can just literally be a story about cannibalism and therefore straight horror, but it can also be something else. So
Yeah,
there
but
are
Jetta,
ways. Yeah.
don't you think that, like, even if it's cannibalism, you could apply that to any, it doesn't have to be homosexuality. You could actually say that about anything. So
Yeah.
actually, maybe, Bob, it isn't like trying
Whoever the
to
characters
diminish.
are.
Yeah, because
Well-
like you could say that straight people do that too, that we consume one another and
Bones and
you know
all.
what I mean?
Sure.
That's kind of what I interpreted it as, was that it's sort of this connection to like a sensuality that it doesn't,
Exactly.
that isn't like fixed to this binary sense of like straight
Exactly.
or gay. It's sort of
Right.
just like, I'm being consumed by this desire to eat flesh, and it doesn't matter who it is. With that being said, though,
It is
Jetta,
a taboo. It is a taboo, though. That's also part
sure.
of it. Yeah.
But Jetta, you made an excellent point in your review that the sole woman in the film is clearly shown as not really under attack from the cannibals. Like, they don't really go after her, and that's the one thing that it makes me go like, okay, so maybe it really is about like strictly homoeroticism. It's not about this like idea that's outside of gender. It's just like this sensuality connected to cannibalism.
Yeah.
And she doesn't speak either. She has like no agency in the film.
Well, when she does speak, she only has wisdom. So it's
right,
it's
but I mean, like, she's not known by them, is what I mean.
Sure.
She's kind of like, she could have been either,
and she's not sexualized either.
She's not
so,
sexualized at all.
Right.
Yeah, true.
Whereas Robert Carlyle, he's peeling off the shirt. He's showing a little shoulder.
Yeah.
So.
yeah. It's
beautiful mind.
Yeah, it's an interesting film, and one that I want to watch again now with that all in mind, because I think it, for me, engaging with the tone was tricky, and I think that maybe having this like subtext in mind is kind of giving me a key to unlock it a bit more, you know, of reading and like, well, why do they need to make a film that switches the tone here to this one there and back and forth? Like, why is it guiding me in this direction? And it's because it's about something that didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah. But also, I mean, the humor is just so... Like, when you have Jeremy Davies who goes, he was licking me! Like, you can't really take that too seriously, no matter how hard you want to just look at it as horror. I mean, that is going to be funny.
Well, okay. Yeah, you're right. Although, it is kind of creepy to think, like... Because at this point, I'm still thinking it's strictly cannibalism. And so I'm like, yeah, I mean, you would maybe lick something that you want to eat, but you're not supposed to. So I was still thinking about it in terms of just strictly cannibalism. Yeah. And I also don't really like Jeremy Davies. So I wasn't...
Bob.
He's so nice. He's
so nice.
He's such a
I
good
just watched
actor.
Saving Private Ryan this morning, and he's the typist.
Have you guys seen Spanking the Monkey?
No,
Bob.
Bob.
I know of it.
It's a Jeremy Davies movie directed
That's
by
a David O.
Russell.
Russell movie, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, what a title.
Yeah.
Never even
You
heard
won't
of
even want to know what it's about. It's
Okay,
disgusting.
I
I think
already
I could
can
guess.
it. Yeah.
Actually,
can guess,
you
Bob.
couldn't, but
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
Oh, well, don't tell me.
Corrected.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Do you want to fight me, Bob?
No, come on.
What? There was something. No, there was something I was going to say. What is the one that you love with him in it, Jet? Because I feel like we just talked about him.
Well, we were talking
He's
about
in
Lost.
Secretary. Oh, and Lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Lost is like mostly what I would think of for him. But
Yeah.
he's been in a ton of movies, and I always like him. He's such a likable presence for me, personally.
Oh, it's
Interesting.
Justified. That's what I was thinking.
yeah.
Bob, why don't you like him?
Okay, so he looks he looks like almost identical to a friend of mine who moved to Korea a couple years ago, and he just like has this really quiet presence. Like, he's always kind of a mumbling like this.
That's fair.
And it drives me nuts. And he's also been in like every movie I've ever seen, it seems. Like, I just feel like he's in so many movies.
Fatigue.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he's a bad actor. You just are a little, it's like a little overexposure, maybe.
Okay. Full disclosure, I think that I don't actually have a strong dislike or like, and I'm just saying I dislike him mainly to just make up my mind. But I do remember the last, most current film I saw with him in it was The Black Phone, and I thought he was so horribly miscast in that. Like, I couldn't stand him in that film. And I did like that movie. You should watch it. It's pretty good.
I like Ethan Hawke.
Oh, he's fantastic.
In it, right? Yeah.
He is so creepy in The Black Phone. I was super impressed.
Oh, man. I've never seen him creepy before. He may not have ever been.
Yeah, I didn't know he had it in him. And he's like maybe a pedophile in it. It's not really...
Wow.
I mean, already you're just like, oh, okay, so... And then you just talk and we're good, you know?
Yeah.
But Jeremy Davies is an abusive, like, drunk father in that. Like, really terrible character. And I think he has a mullet, too. And it just...
He usually has a mullet.
Was not the magic for me that I wanted from him. But I remember
not
seeing...
like Roadhouse.
He's not in Roadhouse.
No, but we're thinking
imagine
mullets.
He was, though.
Mullets. No, we're thinking of the mullets, Bob.
That's the standard.
Okay.
Yeah, the standard of the... Yeah.
That's true.
Dalton.
Right.
He could do the philosophical part of Roadhouse. I could see him doing that really well. I can see him waxing about something.
That's a film where I did get the gay subtext, like, almost immediately.
Well, but that's like even more blatant. I don't know if anyone can watch that. Yeah.
Bob was like, I got that. I feel good about it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this one's gay. Okay, cool. Gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
okay, cool.
But Ravenous, no. You know what it was, Jetta, was that you said the theme tying Ravenous and Bug together was toxic relationships. And so I guess to me, like, okay, how do I put this? Like,
and the question is it toxic? That's also like a question mark.
Well, yeah. Absolutely. I guess then I was looking at it from like a different angle, like a different question per se, because thinking about someone trying to like come to terms with their sexuality isn't something that I would necessarily connect to toxicity in any sense.
Right. And that's the question. Yeah. But he's also, Robert Carlyle is trying to kill him. So it's both. Yeah. It's like, how do you like, and what do you define as toxic? Because Guy Pearce is so strongly against every, like, he is fighting what is happening with every fiber of his being.
Right.
So that is the question. He feels that it's toxic. But is
Jetta,
it?
didn't you originally tell me that you thought the reason that it was toxic was because of the seductive
Well,
part.
that is also, I was thinking in terms of connecting it to Bug, because when you have someone who's so magnetic and is drawing you to them, the question is this actually a relationship they would both want, if we're thinking of it in terms of relationships, or is one person just totally manipulating the situation so much that it's unhealthy? So it's about repression on one hand, but it's also about, is this person actually a good person for me, or is he just totally destroying me? So you can see all these different possibilities and layers, because Robert Carlyle's character is just so all-consuming is like the only way to describe it. If you were thinking of this in terms of a relationship, if you were with a person like that, you would have no personality left, which makes sense given that Guy Pearce's character really doesn't have a personality.
It's like a vampire, right?
Yes,
I mean, because vampires do this.
Yeah.
Where they, what's it called? Where you, there's a word for this, like in True Blood. Like where they romance you, like they entice you and you can't really resist. Mm-hmm. There's a word for this. But like vampires will do that, where it's like almost like mind control, where you're so
entranced,
you're so like bewitched. Yeah, but there's a word for that activity that they do,
and that's why you tend to see this more in vampire movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cannibal is different. That's something that's not really explored quite as much in this horror territory. So
that's
I think that's why it's harder to imagine this in terms of a cannibal context. You expect to see it with seductive vampires, handsome vampires, like that kind of thing.
Well, I made that reference in my review of Lestat and Louis in Interview with a Vampire, because I found there was something very similar there, you know? But then maybe I'm thinking, like, I need to go back and watch Interview with a Vampire to see if there's, like, homoeroticism there I never picked up on.
Oh, yeah, there definitely is, for sure.
Most likely. Definitely. Anne Rice seems like the kind of author that would be into that stuff, you know?
Horny people doing horny things, sure.
Yeah,
like that's kind of the
Jetta can pick it up like that.
But also too, like her core audience was, I think, probably a lot of queer kids and a lot of goth kids that felt like completely marginalized growing up in like whatever suburbs of America, North America, you know? And so you got to think like there is that sort of like outsider element that like you belong here, you can be fully who you are here, you know, which I don't think maybe is present in Ravenous, because we have cannibalism as like this really terrible thing, like don't become a cannibal. Whereas like I think the vampirism in Rice's books is a little bit more mystical, a little bit more like maybe it's okay to be a vampire.
Sure.
Well, and vampires are always sexy. That's what one thing I was saying. Vampires are always sexy and cannibals are not. So that they're trying to like, you know, bridge the.
Jetta's like, I don't know.
Jetta's like, no.
I mean, if you're like Robert Carlyle, then that kind of overrides everything.
Jetta, to you, okay? I'm talking about the general populace.
I do.
Okay, but you have to see the full Monty, and then you have to come back and like circle back to this.
Oh God.
I do think Guy Pearce has some wicked cheekbones. Like I was like, he's probably the most stunning cannibal I've ever seen. I can't think of like a better looking cannibal.
I'm not talking about this movie, guys. I'm saying like in general. The genre. Yeah, movies about cannibals. I mean, because vampires are just always hot and it's different. So I feel like this is more, like Jetta said, it gets into more taboo territory because it's gross.
So then
there's something different about like sucking the blood out of somebody and eating them. There's just a...
Because we've chosen to romanticize like the neck biting and the capes and like the outfits, and it's all very elegant and sophisticated. And cannibals don't have a specific uniform, so it's like we don't know what that's supposed to look like. And it's,
thankfully,
so it's just like gross,
right? But like
it's off-putting.
I think historically, like cannibalism and vampirism have always been kind of hand in hand. Like wasn't
makes sense.
Dracula based off of like people that were technically cannibals? I don't have my history facts on hand. This is coming to mind right now, so I'm not super succinct with this. But I think like Elizabeth Bathory and Vlad the Impaler, like all these people in history that were technically cannibals were the seeds to like Bram Stoker and who else wrote vampire books?
Okay,
yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think that like cannibalism is the closest to actual vampirism that exists in our history. In you know what I mean?
Actual societal, yeah. Okay.
It's the magic.
They're just.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bob. It's the magic what?
Magic realism version of cannibal. That's it.
Okay. I can see that.
I think you're right, and I think this movie was trying to make it more appealing in some sense, even if it's just like appealing in the sense that it has this like folklore about it.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like if this had been like modern day, it would have been totally different. I mean, we're not talking about like Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
We're talking like the setting that they're in is a romantic setting. It almost reminds me of like Princess Bride or something. It's like woodsy or
Dances with Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a Braveheart kind of like. So it has this like rustic
like folklore
quality.
Well, there is a Native American folklore element to it. There's a mention of the Wendigo. The Wendigo. Spirit, like the spirit that consumes. So there is this aspect of, like, maybe there is something like indigenous folklore is actually inspiring what is happening. So, like there's a historical feeling to it. There's a feeling that it's rooted in, other than magical realism. Yeah, like the actuality of people, the culture in that setting.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
also, like, it was impossible for me. When I wrote that first review, I said that it reminded me of Brokeback Mountain. So there is like
Yeah.
there's like this feeling of like they're removed from society. They're in this mountain setting. The scene
Like Gothic, Jet.
that's one example. But like just like the feeling of not being in elegant, like quote unquote civilized settings. Like they're in barracks, they're in woods, they're in these places
Oh, okay. I see what you
removed
mean.
from
Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
rest of their society is. So different things can happen that maybe wouldn't happen in another scenario. Or like in that like pit. That whole like that whole segment of the movie where the music turns from being wild and noisy to more lush and orchestral when Boyd is in that pit with the character who's died. Like that whole section of, is he changing? What's happening? Like how is, I just think that there's something to that it's not going to happen in the city. It's got to happen on the mountain. It's got to happen when they're removed from other people. So I think there's something to that.
Like hidden away. You don't have to publicly reveal your impulses.
Like in a rural setting or in a setting that's removed from, well, there is something. I think there is something to that. When you're away from other people, you can somehow bring out sides of you that you might not in the rest of society.
Right.
So I think there is also that tied in there.
Right. So then, in a way, for Robert Carlyle to thrive with Jeffrey Jones. I mean, I'm going into major spoiler territory here, but like Jeffrey Jones, Guy Pearce, would you say then that their end goal would have been to just basically either kill people or turn them into cannibals like themselves?
I think it was more like turning people into cannibals, right?
Right, but you do need a certain amount of people you can eat to like maintain your energy too, right?
Right, but I think ultimately Carlisle wanted to turn people. Well, I don't know. Like, I mean, he definitely wanted Guy Pearce to like. Yeah, I do. I think that the bigger draw to Robert Carlyle's character was, can I bring this man with me? Like, can I convince him that the other side is the right way to be? I think that was like, yes, he wanted to eat people, but also like he wanted to. I think that the real magnetism, the draw for him was showing this other character, this is what you could be, this is what you could do, this would be exciting.
Right. But I mean, in order to survive and be accepted into this community, you have to be yourself a cannibal and do these horrible things. And if you choose not to, you would be killed and eaten or whatever. Right, like we can all agree that's more or less which is
those are the only two options.
And this is only kind of dawning on me now, and maybe this is way too much of a Pandora's box to open. We're kind of moving away from the homoeroticism, but the fact that it's based on an indigenous folklore, I do wonder if there's like a level of colonialism in the subtext there.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this has to do with like manifest destiny and like the settlers coming into this setting that they weren't in before, because this takes place, it's after the it's not during the Civil War, right? Isn't it the is it the Mexican-American War? Like it's during that era, so it's all about like the white colonialists like coming in and taking over, and so like I think that is also part of that for sure too.
Right. And so they go to the indigenous people in the whatever that is, like that little base, and they go to them for guidance, like, how do we deal with this Wendigo? And then doesn't the woman say something like, you can't, like it just keeps feeding? It's like, you can't really stop this, it's just gonna keep eating them up, it's like, so basically you're gonna be presented with, you either get eaten or you join them and you become one of them. Which is basically like colonialism, right? Because the Americans came in and were like, indigenous people, like, you have to learn Christianity, you have to do this, you know what I mean? Or otherwise, well,
it's like that Revolutionary War phrase, right? Join or die. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
only two options.
It's like the Wicker Man. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. So
that movie, I think of colonialism so much with that. It's like just an outsider trying to come in and get everybody, and they're like, no thanks, bye.
Yeah,
right.
I feel like a lot of folk horror touches on that too, on colonialism, you know, especially because we're watching these films about like ancient traditions and ancient, you know, communities, but always from a modern perspective, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're like infringing upon something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we are steering away from the toxic relationship aspect, which, as Jetta has pointed out, is to do with, you know, repressed sexuality and everything. And I just don't like the idea of thinking this is like gay subtext and a colonial metaphor too.
But the fact that but I think importantly, the fact that it's a film that has such a fan base, and a lot of people who identify as queer love it, suggests that they feel like there is something really interesting about it. So it's not received totally negatively. It is a fascinating idea. And because Robert Carlyle is so fantastic in his performance, I think you just can't help but love watching that. And Guy Pearce is so great. Like, the whole cast makes it so good. Like, that's a big part of the appeal too, the acting. I think the entire cast is just so good that it's just fun to watch.
Yeah,
so that's you can enjoy it, like, whatever you take away from it, whether you think this is toxicity or like, does this actually have something to say about repression? You can just enjoy the performances and enjoy the commitment that the actors brought to it. David Arquette. I love David Arquette. He's so good.
Yeah, he's great.
I mean, how could you not love that scene where Guy Pearce is like fantasizing about eating him? Like, it's great.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes. Food for thought, literally.
Literally.
I liked when when Guy Pearce sliced open Jeffrey Jones' neck. That was good.
Well, it is a gory movie. Like, as a horror fan, like, it is bloody. So if you just want to watch it for the horror, like, it's pretty entertaining.
Bon appetit.
Exactly.
That's what my review ended with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and ravenous is such a good word for it too.
It is.
Because that implies such an insatiability that, like, no matter what you do, you'll never be full.
Right. And like, what exactly is your appetite? So,
and it's such I think it was such a weird film to market, which is one of the biggest issues why it flopped, which is interesting because, like, I was looking up stuff, and this is a little segue into Bug. William Friedkin had a lot of the same issues with that film coming out because he didn't see it as a horror film. He called it a black comedy love story, but he thought that more or less you market a film however you can, and you have to present it as a horror film. And I see what he means. Like, I agree that it is definitely more of a drama, but if you tell someone it's a horror film, you are preparing them for at least, like, the level of intensity for them to expect.
Well, Michael Shannon said in the New York Times article I put in my review that it was a love story. Michael Shannon felt that it was, and that he said that he felt like that was the best reading of it. To get the most out of it was to see it as a love story.
Okay.
A very, very twisted and sad love story.
Right. But I mean, if you think about, like, that these people, I mean, I part of the reason that Bug works so well for me is because of the catharsis.
Yeah.
Like, he's able to get Ashley Judd's character at the very end to go through, like, and she's like, and then, and even though she's insane, like what she's saying, like, and then they took the kid, somehow he is like freeing her of it, like the trauma of losing her child and everything. I don't think that anybody else could have done that. And so that is it's twisted, but it's a loving way to sort of set her free from all of that blockage, because it's so intense what they experience together that they're both able to, like, vomit all this out. And I felt like it's very healing that he lets her go on that long thing of how she lost her son, even though it's insane what she's saying. To her it isn't, and that, like, unclogs a lot. I think I find that, like, very moving that he lets her do that.
I felt like he was kind of just like, join me on the other side.
Oh no, I think he was trying to help her.
Well, yeah, with his logic, right? But he's so deeply enmeshed in his, like, deteriorating mental health that it's sort of just like, hey, I'm all the way over here. Like, I've lost my mind. Like, come with me and meet me there, and we will be like completely lost together. Which I think is the trajectory of a love story for sure.
Well, it's a folie à deux, right? It's that shared madness.
I like that.
Yeah.
Folie à
like
deux.
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Jet? Like the end of Who's Afraid is Burton trying to get her to realize what the truth is and get free of it. So I see the parallel very strongly between those two movies.
Interesting.
Whether it's there or not, I do see it.
I mean, this is more blatantly toxic in the sense that she has obviously been in a very, very abusive relationship. Harry Connick Jr.'s character is just the absolute worst.
Yeah.
So
very hot, though. Very hot. We have to say, Jet. God, he's so hot in this movie. Jetta.
Yeah, but his character is such a piece of shit. It's kind of hard for me to
I agree, but
I can't separate the two. But in any case,
fair enough.
I can.
In any case. Well, you have to understand, anytime I see Harry Connick Jr., I'm just immediately thinking of Independence Day and like the worst performance in film history. So,
well, he made up for it in this.
Yeah, no, it's a great performance. I always got to laugh a little at him. So,
okay.
In any case, it's a great performance, though. I mean, I think that he does that performance exactly as needed, and you really, really are afraid of him, and you can't imagine how horrible it must be for her to have been with him. So, because she was in such an abusive relationship, she will take whatever she can get, and she wants to believe so strongly in whatever Peter is presenting to her. And no matter how insane it is, no matter how illogical, she is just taking and taking and taking until it consumes her. That's why the all-consuming idea is the same in both movies, because that kind of passion, whether it's toxic or not, it can destroy you. It destroys Guy Pearce in Ravenous. Whether you think it should or not is the question. But in Bug, it's really the opposite direction of Agnes wanting it to consume her, because she thinks that is the best way. It's better than what she had before. It's like she says to Peter early on, or actually, no, this is from late in the movie, when she says she'd rather talk to him about bugs than nobody to nothing.
Than nobody.
That is absolutely like the bare minimum. So, is it actually better to have someone around who is that toxic for you than to be alone? I mean, depends on the person, right? For some people, they can handle it. For some people, like her, they just cannot. So
yeah, but I don't think that he's like evil though, Jetta.
Well,
do you think that he's like a villain? Because I think he genuinely cares about her, especially at the beginning. They have a connection. Like I don't think it's just like ill will the fuel.
I don't think it was intentional in the way that Ravenous is about intentionally deceiving and intentionally manipulating. I think in Bug, what's interesting in that is when we're first introduced to Peter, you know how he's very like, oh, you don't really like me. Like he's very like, he shrugs everything off and he thinks that she doesn't want to be around him. Like he's too weird for her. I think he is projecting a lot of his past experience, and I think he's trying not to get close to her, and he wants to seem more together than he is, right? Like, it's not until after they've been intimate, after they've had sex, that he really begins to launch into his whole bug spiel, right? So I think he tries to put on a certain face for her when they're getting to know each other, but then once he's gotten to know her, that's when he can really reveal himself. So I don't think it's ill will. I don't think it's that he was trying to intentionally be a different person for her, but I think it's like the nature of getting close to someone sometimes can change how you relate to them and who you're going to show yourself to be. So,
Bob, what did you think? I like it, Jetta, but I didn't have this reading at all.
I feel like I might even have had an even harsher reading than Jetta, because I felt like her situation was kind of going out of what's the saying? It's like out of the pot and into the oven or something. Like, I don't know what the cliche is, but either way,
I know what you mean. Yeah,
I think that people in abusive relationships develop a pattern of going into another abusive relationship, and I do think that there was something not how do I put this, like not immediately obvious about the abuse of Michael Shannon, but he just to me, he just seemed to kind of be like quietly manipulative of her. And I think that she was just actually like wanting to just get into another abusive relationship. There was also this feeling that he can protect me from my past abusive partner as well.
Oh, well, yeah,
Even
she
though he
says
didn't.
that. Yeah, she wants
Right.
him to be
Yeah.
there to do that.
I think that's like a common thing too. And I mean, not to go like too personal, but just from like my own experiences with like, you know, people I've been friends with that have been in abusive relationships and everything, it did kind of like ring true a little bit of like, oh yeah, like I remember seeing those kind of patterns as well. Um yeah, and so I just felt like Michael Shannon was sort of like this boy in the beginning to her. Like he just seemed like this quiet, like, hello, I'm a little boy. Like that's kind of how he came off. And it was like, oh, and she lost her son. And so there's this hole in her and he's kind of filling it. And like even the scene where he's asking her to tell him about like losing her son, there was a couple questions where I was like, man, you should have stopped asking. But he just kept going. And it was one of those things like, there's a subtle manipulation of that where it's like, I'm going to now use this information to manipulate you. But I'm also going to make you feel like because you opened up to me, I'm giving you like a warm environment to come into, like you can trust me, you know? So that's the thing that was interesting with the film, was that it very much read like on the surface as just like a horrible example of like these two people in an abusive relationship succumbing to poor mental illness. Like this could almost happen in this real world. There's not, even though there's that sense of like body horror kind of, and maybe a bit of like magic realism or something, it really is just like, this could happen, you know?
Well, that scene where he is pulling his teeth out, I mean, that has a visceral, like, that is disturbing to me in a way that even more than the violence in Ravenous, because just the idea of someone standing in front of their mirror and doing that is just like, oh, I can feel it. Like, it's so awful. And the idea that Agnes would convince herself that she can see whatever she's looking at under the microscope. It's all about her trying to see what he sees and to convince herself that they see the same thing and they are going through the same experience.
Delusion, Jetta.
Yeah, delusion is incredibly strong when you want that badly to be on that person's wavelength and for you to feel like you understand each other and you have the same pain. Yeah, that is incredibly strong. There is actually another review I have. This one, it's from the blog Father, Son, Holy Gore. It says, and I think this is really interesting, part of the film works as tragedy, watching Agnes spiral further into a relationship just as destructive as the one she was in before with her ex-con husband. Doesn't matter that Peter isn't physically abusive, neither is he mentally abusive. What makes it all the more tragic is how Agnes's desperation to be loved and to love a good man leads her to begin sharing the psychosis of Peter. Folie à deux. This is a living metaphor of how, at times when we're in love, we do things against our better judgment, blinded by emotion. When you love someone you hope to connect with the same ideas and concepts, Agnes... I misread that. When you love someone you hope to connect with the same ideas and concepts, so Agnes gradually falls deeper into the madness Peter perpetuates. What starts in a blackly comic mode quickly devolves into pure insanity, with Peter descending to a state of paranoia which wraps Agnes up in a whirlwind, an unstoppable force that at a certain stage neither the two lovers are able to control. Before the audience or Agnes knows it, the delusion has encompassed all. Yeah.
I agree with that, yeah.
I mean, it's tragic because you feel so bad for Agnes because she lost her child, and obviously she has gone through intense trauma, but she wants Peter to save her from that. She wants the connection with him to be an answer. It is better than what she has gone through.
Yeah.
And is it? I mean, she was, I mean, she had a friendship with RC, but he convinced her that it was horrible, and she saw, and like, you could see the way when RC is last in the film, when she comes back and she's like, I don't understand what you're seeing, what is going on?
Yeah.
I mean, that relationship, it's like when in abusive relationships, the partner who's abusive tells you to stop your friendships to get away from the people you've been close to. Like, they want you all to themselves. Like, that is such a horrible, horrible thing, the idea of, like, removing you from your friends and family. So I thought a lot about that.
Yeah. It was like it was kind of a painful movie to watch in a lot of ways.
It is.
You know?
It is.
And I think the character of RC, like, really resonated with me because, like, I haven't been in a situation exactly like that, but I feel like I've been that character. I've seen people be that character, you know, and it's like, it is a hard thing to go through when you're trying to get someone to see, like, no, things are really bad, you know? Yeah, that's why that's why maybe I struggle to call it a love story even, you know, because like, that's not to take away the power of the film. Like, I did find it really cathartic. And I think I said in my review, I would have loved to see an even longer version of this. But for me, it's like, I can't reconcile like all that's going on in the film and call it a love story, you know? But maybe it's just a weird form of love that I don't understand.
Well, I think it's something people go through all the time.
Unfortunately, yeah.
It's also their version of it too.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to think about it in terms of like, it's almost to me like a Romeo and Juliet sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where these people are like discarded and lost and very lonely and feel like they've been abandoned by society. And she literally just wants someone who will listen to her when she talks. And to me, that's like the saddest thing is that like it's not necessarily, I don't think that she has bare minimum standards. It's that she isn't ever shown basic decency, which basic decency, I think, is not a minimum standard. It's like, you know, people aren't listened to all the time when they talk. Like, even when you're talking to your friends, a lot of times it's hard to feel like people are hearing you. And I think that Peter really hears her. And I do think that he cares about her in as much as he is capable. And maybe the reason that he wants to bring her in on the paranoia is not because he's devious. It's because he doesn't want to be alone in it. Like, he could literally, if he believes that this is really happening, he thinks that he's saving her. So I just, I don't know. I don't at all see this as like that he's bad. I understand that in the context of like us watching the movie that it's an abusive relationship, but I don't think to them it is at all. And I don't think the motives are impure.
Well, I don't think he's going out of his way, like thinking, I want to hurt her, like I want to do something cruel to her. I think
he wants to help her.
Yeah, I think in his own way, in the only way he understands, he thinks that what he's doing is good for her. But I also think that he doesn't have the capability to empathize with her, because I don't think, like, when she tells him about losing her child, I don't feel like he's processing that like, oh, I feel so sorry for your loss. I'm so, like, horrified and saddened by what you've gone through. He's really only filtering it through his understanding of his conspiracy theories and his paranoia. So I don't think he can really understand the pain she's gone through. He can only try to relate it to, this is what I do know, and it's the paranoia. So,
yeah, but that's all anybody can do, Jetta. Empathy only goes so far as you can understand your own situation. I mean,
but that's the toxicity that she settles for it, and she thinks that's the best she can do. And even though he has shown
maybe
her,
it is.
Well,
do you know what I'm saying? I don't know. This is tricky because I feel like she, in as much as he is capable of relating, he relates. He is literally trying to get her to talk about it and get it out, just like he's trying to get his bugs out. Like, I do not like, I mean, I don't know. It's just like so powerful to me that these people are even trying so hard, despite their limitations, to get to a place where they feel redeemed at all. And I think at the end they do, even though they die. Well, they're free of their stuff.
That's the thing; it destroys them, and it potentially destroys that whole motel structure. I mean, they could be killing other people.
They were being destroyed anyway.
They could be killing other people.
I agree with you, Amy, when you say that it's almost like he loves her just with the only language he knows. And and I can appreciate that motivation, you know. I think the film does work in that sense. And so that it is a love story, just it's a love story between two people that don't know how to love properly. You know, like they're taking each other to the edge of like oblivion, you know, because that's all they know how to do with each other. And so maybe it does work as a love story in that sense, that like the only way they know how to love is to be as destructive, self-destructive as possible, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, like
Yeah.
Wild at Heart is kind of this way. A lot of movies that go hard with the love story are not necessarily healthy relationships. Like, I'm not
True.
saying that this is
Right.
healthy. I'm just saying I do find it romantic in a sense.
But with Wild at Heart, I think those characters are already on the same page. They don't have to convince each other to be like one like the other. Like, they're together from the beginning. With Bug, it is a matter of one person who...
So you feel like there's the seduction element here?
Yes, that's why I think there is a link with Ravenous, because there's a person who believes in something, in a way of being so strongly, and is drawing the other person to them. And in one movie, you have complete, or as much as possible, denial and resistance. And then in this movie, it is giving in. It is accepting it and clinging to it and feeling like this is not only the best answer, but the only answer. I think by the...
Kind of like a cult, sort of.
Well, there is, yeah, I mean, the magnetism, the idea of drawing someone so completely to you that they will not...
Who's kind of weak at the time and, like, vulnerable.
Right, well, yes.
And then
the vulnerability, I think, is the most crucial thing, because when she meets Peter...
I see what you mean.
She thinks this is like salvation. Like, this is going to help me. This is going to be the only thing I can do. And whether that is healthy, whether that is actually good for her, is the question, because I think it depends on how you read the ending. Is it a tragedy or is it actually cathartic? I mean, you can...
I think it can be both.
Yeah, I mean, it can be.
Yeah, especially with fire involved.
Well, but then there is that ending, that little bit at the end, that haunting little shot in the end credits of the toys on the floor, right? That just makes me, that ambiguity, whatever that shot is supposed to imply, like just trying to figure out, is there still something left hanging, you know? Is there still something, like, what was real about any of that? I don't know. Like, it makes you think. It makes you wonder whether anything was resolved at all.
Yeah, it made me wonder, actually, if any of this story for either party was completely made up or part of their, like, psychosis or something.
We'll never know.
And I love
and
that.
Also, I was gonna say, Bob, too, Tracy Letts, the playwright, I think he got a Tony for being George in Who's Afraid, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is literally about inventing a child and the death of that delusion of the child.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, Letts was extremely familiar with that script. He wrote this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see it as implausible at all.
Yeah.
That there would be that correlation when he was so familiar with that play.
Yeah, yeah. Or, I mean...
And there's so many parallels in my mind to both. And it's my favorite movie. So, I mean, I've seen it.
It's great. I think I've only seen it once, and it was like literally 20 years ago. So I need to watch it again.
Well, that also, thinking about, I mentioned earlier Robert Carlyle and Antonia Bird having a relationship and working on a few movies together. Similarly, Michael Shannon and Tracy Letts had a long-standing theatrical partnership. They had worked together. Cool. Like, Michael Shannon was in the first version of Bug in 1993.
Right.
Or not, no, he wasn't in Bug. He was in Killer Joe. He was in Killer Joe in 1993, and then he was in Bug, I think, in 1998. So it's so interesting to think of Tracy Letts writing this screenplay and wanting Michael Shannon to do it, having him in mind, and thinking about that connection of the writer knowing that the actor can do it and believing so strongly in the actor's intensity. Like, this is definitely a role that Michael Shannon was born to play. And so I think that so much of the effectiveness, however you interpret it, however you feel about what it means, I think that loving the movie is a lot for me about loving the actor's conviction and thinking about like just how much goes into what the actors are doing. Like, I can imagine this being done on stage. I can imagine how powerful it was for Bug being done in a theater and seeing those actors like bring that rawness and that energy to a stage and to a live audience. So whatever you interpret the story to be, just thinking about the actors throwing so much of themselves into it is also powerful.
Yeah.
And that gives you so much to think about.
Well, it's interesting, too, because if I'm not mistaken, and I tried to research this to confirm it's true, but William Friedkin at this point in his directing career was all about only doing one take with his actors, because he mentioned this in the documentary, I believe, the like most recent Friedkin documentary that came out. And so he'd just be like, you know the part, I'm gonna say action, and then we do it. I mean, maybe if you make a huge blunder, they'll redo it or something, but it's just putting people on their toes. And to me, that's so amazing that he got these performances that were just like, and go, and go, and go. You know what I mean? That's so cool.
Well, maybe because they didn't have to do it so many times, that actually helped.
Could be.
Because there was because that would have been tiring to do like over and over and over that level of like engagement. But if you only had to do it once, then you can give it, I would imagine
that's true. Yeah.
Really get versus like David Fincher, who does like how many takes?
What about Kubrick?
I think he does like 100. Oh,
Kubrick was like Guinness Book of World Record shit. Like, I think
where you can't, you get so exhausted.
I think it might be bordering on abuse at that point. Like, do you need to do that many times?
And definitely it helped that I read an interview that Michael Shannon and Ashley Judd had never met before making the film. They didn't know each other at all. And they didn't rehearse, I don't think. And so I think that feeling of them not knowing each other and getting to know each other in the way that the characters have to get to know each other, that would have helped too. If they did too many takes and they began to get too comfortable, I think that might have affected.
Good point,
too.
Jet.
Yeah, like the electricity would fizzle out or something.
Maybe.
Or they'd get accustomed to each other, like so that freshness wouldn't be there. Because you're right, I definitely feel like it feels very real. The whole movie feels real to me.
Yeah,
like in the possession way. Like I just feel those, like the movie Possession.
Right.
Yeah, like those. Those are such visceral performances. Like you don't feel like anybody's acting, and you feel like they're insane.
Yeah,
you know, like or going insane.
Yeah. Ashley Judd especially impressed me because I don't think I'd really seen a lot of stuff with it. Like obviously, like the big stuff that she was in back in the day, but
Heat. I just saw her in Heat. The other day.
I forgot she was even in that. But she kills it. She's so good in this movie.
She's a great actor.
Yeah. I kind of want to see her like more of her films now. So
I'm sure that her being in this was also a big part of what helped get it made, because her being a Hollywood star, I'm sure, was a big draw, because Michael Shannon was really not. This was before he was ever considered a star in Hollywood. He was doing a lot of Broadway, and he was doing a lot of smaller supporting roles in films.
Yeah.
But when he did this on Broadway, he did it with an actress named Shannon Cochran, which is also interesting, because one of the first times I ever knew who Michael Shannon was because when he did this in, actually, I think it was 2004, there was a photo spread in New York Magazine where he and Shannon Cochran did a full frontal nude shoot. Like they just it was just like them covered in blood, like he was holding a knife, and I was like, interesting.
Like, so, I need to remember this guy.
Like,
Of course, I would always remember that.
Yeah.
So and I'm sure that, if Shannon Cochran was considered like a Hollywood, viable lead, like she would have been considered, but the fact that
but Ashley was great.
I think they wanted someone who was more famous and successful, but I think she does an amazing job. So, I mean, you can't really fault anyone for doing that.
I mean, in terms of the cast, the only person I was like maybe iffy about was RC. Was that her name? But
Lynn
she
Collins.
had so little to do.
I like her.
She was okay.
Yeah.
I
liked her in things I've seen her in. I think she does fine.
I've never seen her in anything else, so maybe that's what it is. But
it's the hotness. The hotness is distracting for me. I'll give people so many points for just being. She is so sultry.
She's good looking for sure.
Very.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
I just feel so bad for her character, because she's going through some trauma too. Like, and you wonder, like,
I know,
who cares
with her own.
Nobody's talking about what she's going through. She's like suffering with her own thing, and it's like, nope, we don't care. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but that's another.
That's like you feel.
That's
so
another.
bad.
Pattern of like abusive relationships. They don't care about anyone else's relationship.
Yeah, that was that was a really like subtle indicating point when Ashley Judd comes back with RC and is trying to tell Michael Shannon, she's now getting custody.
We went to the doctor.
Or she now has custody of her son or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, great, okay, back to my little things.
I don't care.
That just
again,
to me
the lack of empathy.
Yeah, that was a clear sign of like, oh, this this is another abusive relationship. That sucks.
And they're just obsessed. I don't think they can think about anything else, quite frankly, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to. It's like the Ravenous thing. I mean, like, that guy couldn't think about anything else. They're so entrenched and immersed in their own psychosis.
But Agnes would have cared before, like that.
Well,
like it's a definitely different. Like it's a shift.
Good point.
She's
Jet.
trying. She's trying to care in that moment. I think she's trying, and then because Michael Shannon is just like, whatever. Yeah, I've got bugs on my skin or whatever. She's like, she kind of is just like, well, that's what he wants, so I'm going to go with him. And it's such a realistic kind of behavior, I think, in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that need, I mean, I would say even when people aren't in toxic relationships, when they're in a new relationship, that's all they talk about. That's all they want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
They stop caring about other people's problems and issues. And that, I mean, I think that's just characteristic in general of like infatuation.
Sure.
And like beginnings of things that you just don't really.
Yeah.
You're in like
it's a honeymoon phase.
Oh, your own world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor that was following him around, that was a really cool scene, and I didn't fully understand what was going on, but the fact that he like smoked, were they smoking weed? Like, what were they smoking in the movie?
I thought it was crack.
I wasn't really sure, but I also think it kind of works if you don't know. Because so much of this movie is about like the enigma of not fully knowing what's happening.
I mean,
so
maybe
it could be like pick your own poison.
Maybe it's because I'm Canadian, and I also partake that like weed just is
you
not.
Want to believe it was?
Well, no,
weed?
it's just weed to me is like, oh, I don't care if a guy walks in and has a puff of weed, but if a guy walks in and has a puff of like meth or crack or whatever, like that's kind of what the fuck.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
The whole thing is, like Jetta said, maybe none of it's really happening.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? When characters come in and out, I don't know that we don't necessarily
So did
know.
they even set fire to themselves at the end?
Yes. But I don't know if everybody around them exists, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I would actually even question
maybe it was
the
just
fire.
the two of them.
I mean, we never, I think when you have something happen in a story where nobody else sees it and nobody else knows, like you can always question something like that. And then having a shot at the end with the toys, like, you never know.
Here's a weird theory, and immediately don't accept it, but what if Michael Shannon is her son?
Oh my God.
I thought you were going to say, what if it's like the movie Identity, where it's like Michael Shannon is alone in a hotel room and there's no one. There's no one else there.
No, let's go back to the son thing.
Yeah, we didn't need it to go that dark.
Yeah, I didn't need it to go that far.
Could you imagine?
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
I don't want to.
In the mind of Bob.
I tried to like play it out timeline wise because her son was 6. But no, it wouldn't work. Yeah.
She's not that much older than him.
He literally tells her, "You're not old enough to be my mom."
Right.
I don't think it makes any.
You're right.
So he's discounting your theory right off the bat. He's like, just in case Bob says maybe it's her son, I'm going to put this line in the script.
I just watched The Strange Thing About the Johnsons the other day, and then I showed it to my wife the other night. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ari Aster's first short film.
I know of it. I know some part of it.
I really think it's brilliant, but it's one of the most disturbing films I've ever seen. And
Jetta, have you even seen an Ari Aster film?
No, but I know
really?
I know about it though.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
must.
But you've never seen Hereditary or Midsummer.
Well, but with Hereditary,
Beau was Afraid.
That's because a friend of mine spoiled Hereditary for me, like told me everything that happened, and I was like, thanks.
That's okay.
Like now I don't. Need to
whatever.
See it.
I'd say
it's
Midsummer and Beau's Afraid.
Yeah, I like Midsummer.
Midsummer and Beau's Afraid aren't really like spoilable per se.
Okay.
Like you can take them not knowing any kind of twist, but Hereditary, you do kind of need to be surprised. Yeah.
It's just Rosemary's Baby, basically. I mean, there's so many Ari Aster just steals stuff. Midsummer is basically Wicker Man. There's so much stuff that he just takes.
Yeah, it's homage. I'd say it's not like Tarantino level, like just picking
plagiarism.
Yeah, and Beau's Afraid is like one of the most insane movies I've ever seen.
But that just doesn't sound interesting to me.
It's
really?
anxiety inducing.
I could skip that.
No, don't. You should watch Midsummer. Watch. Like Amy and I both vouched for Midsummer. You should.
Okay,
watch
no,
Midsommar.
that I
Yes.
could try, but like Beau is
I
afraid,
love
like
Midsommar.
watching Joaquin Phoenix have mommy issues.
So do I.
Oh,
Midsummer is great as a breakup film, and as that's like a toxic relationship
Okay.
film.
Yeah.
A lot more clearly than that one is like hands down that dude is a douche,
Okay.
and it's like the gaslighting and everything.
yeah,
It's totally a breakup movie.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Midsummer
I felt
probably
great
sounds
afterwards.
the most interesting out of all the films he's made so far.
It's-
And Florence Pugh is
She's
great.
yeah, no,
phenomenal.
She's so
I
good.
could try that for sure.
I'd never seen her before.
I
Before I
don't know
saw
if I
that.
had either. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, "Who is this person?" Like, I mean, she
One
was
thing
so
I'll say
good.
about Midsummer, though, and this seems to be true from a lot of people I've talked to that saw in theaters, was that just the theatrical experience of seeing it was really like, it just felt like no one had experienced that in a long time, of seeing such a bizarre film.
Yeah, I saw it too.
So you see this bizarre
Yeah.
film and the whole audience, like you could hear a pin drop and you could feel this collective, like, oh my God, you know?
Some people are very harsh on it, but I disregard
love
them.
it.
I
So
think it's
good.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We'll
we
vouch
should
for
maybe I'll have you two
Go
come
ahead.
back and we can do
Oh, and do
Midsummer.
Midsummer? And then if Jetta hates it, we can all just cry.
That's okay.
No, you would not cry. I think whether I love something or hate something, and you feel similarly, Amy, you just stand by your opinion. No crying
Well, I hope
necessary.
I hope that if you watch it, that you like it. I'm
could.
not a huge fan of
I
Astor
could.
in general, but I like what's his name better, Eggers.
Oh yeah. Well, you know how much I love The Lighthouse.
Oh, Lighthouse
yeah,
is great.
and The Witch.
I still haven't seen The Witch. I've only
Oh,
seen The
it's
Lighthouse
so
from him,
good.
but
Oh, it's so
yeah,
good.
I do need.
Amazing.
I need to see that.
It's nice. It's nice to agree with
I-
Bob. It is very.
I even
good.
liked The Northman. I thought that was a pretty fun film.
I do want to see that too, just because it
Hmm.
sounds so like everything being
Crazy.
thrown at the wall.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yes.
it's not like a, how do I put this? It's not like a perfect movie by any means. Like it feels like his Conan the Barbarian. Like that's exactly what it
it's
is. Great score.
It's nonstop.
Oh, it's unrelenting.
Nonstop
yeah.
intensity.
Okay.
There's no calm. There's no. It's just
No
amped,
chill.
amped
Yeah.
for 2 hours. I was just like, it's
It's
exhausting.
schlocky.
But so
Okay.
Beau is afraid. It's kind of like.
Well,
I
I
was
would always-
afraid.
Yeah.
I would always rather a filmmaker do too much and try too many things and be
Well, then
overambitious.
you should watch Beau's Afraid.
Well, then you should watch.
Well-
Those
You
movies
should
are
watch Beau's
way
Afraid.
too much.
It's
Yeah.
Oh, it's so over the
it's
top.
3 hours
Oh,
of too much
Oh.
everything.
too much.
Wow.
Everything,
I
Bob.
love
It's
it.
too
I
much.
love it.
Oh,
Okay.
It's a roller
Torture.
coaster. But yeah,
okay.
we should wrap soon if
Okay.
you guys are cool with
go
that.
ahead with the questionnaire,
Oh yes,
right?
yes.
Got the
questionnaire.
questionnaire.
Right, Bob?
But is there any last
I'm ready.
thoughts on Bug or Ravenous before we wrap things up? You know, it's a shame that not enough people have seen either one of these films. I feel like Ravenous has had a bit more of a cult following. Bug is still maybe too new, you know?
I think Bug actually has more people who see it because William Friedkin is just such a big draw.
Friedkin. I was gonna say
Oh,
that. Yeah.
Like after
Maybe they're trying to complete his filmography.
That's
yeah,
true.
after he
Yeah.
passed away and a lot of people were just like going through the films they loved or the films they hadn't seen. I feel like I saw a lot of reviews for Bug, whereas with Ravenous
Yep.
you really have to be interested in the topic or the actors and it's a little harder to sell it maybe. So
Sure. Have either of you seen Killer Joe?
no.
Yes.
Oh,
But
you
I
didn't
will.
like it?
That was a scarring experience.
Oh, okay. I saw my wife and I actually saw a staged play of it, so I haven't seen the movie.
Wow.
And that was really cool. Yeah.
I never looked at Matthew McConaughey the same again. It really bothered me. But I was younger when I saw it, to be fair.
Okay.
But I know Let's wrote it, and Mark DeTavio keeps telling me to watch it. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it
I'll have
now, having seen Bug and really loving Bug. Yeah, Bug would be maybe like number 5 Friedkin for me or something.
Well, To Live and Die in L.A. is my
Yeah.
favorite.
It's your favorite? Wow.
I love that too.
It's
love
good,
it. Oh
but
my
I mean,
gosh.
The Exorcist.
I'd watch it right now.
Come on.
Well, The Exorcist would be too.
What
yeah.
about
And then
Sorcerer?
Sorcerer, yeah.
Sorcerer.
Sorcerer is great. I love To Live and Die in L.A.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about that movie that's so
It's fun.
Jetta, that's like your is that on your masculine?
Yes, William Peterson. Oh
course.
my god.
Oh my gosh. It is such a dude movie that I love.
I mean, it's like the best you could get from 80s neo-noir. Like, everything about it just hits so good. Well.
Defoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The painter.
I'm a bigger fan of Cruising, personally. I love Cruising. It's so gnarly.
I love that movie.
That's Schrader, right?
Is it Schrader?
No, it's another Friedkin.
Yeah.
No, didn't Schrader write it?
No, I don't think so. I could be wrong, but yeah.
No, I'm probably wrong, but for some reason I associate that with Paul Schrader.
Cruising rules. I love it. It's like his slasher, but it's also homoerotic and like abstract and weird.
It's not homoerotic. I mean, he's undercover as a gay character. Like, it's text. I mean,
yeah. Oh, so homoeroticism is strictly a subtextual term?
Well, I think like the idea of homoeroticism in terms of like, it's not like totally blatant. It's kind of like woven in. Okay. But Pacino in Cruising, like, he's supposed to be playing gay. Like, that's the character's like, that's what he's doing. And
oh no, you're right. I think that's more like. I don't think I knew the term worked in that way. I thought it was more just like homosexual and erotic, but I didn't. Yeah. But now I get it. Now
I guess it could be. I get. Maybe I'm not the right person to ask.
That's true.
Friedkin's the one who wrote it. I just looked it up.
Good for him.
Friedkin wrote he wrote Cruising and directed it. But I may watch To Live and Die in LA.
It's so good. It is so good.
I'll rewatch it at some point. You know what it is, and this is you guys are gonna go, wonderful. Bob. But okay, the whole film is built off of money laundering. And it was one of those things where it's like, if this was even at least like a drug ring or something, just like a little bit more darker to me, I would have liked it more.
It's so good.
It's the style. It's the style that matters.
The style's great.
Yeah.
The style is great.
And the car chases and the like. It's just so, I don't know. You feel cool watching it.
And Friedkin put so much effort into it. Didn't it take like 3 weeks to get the really big like set piece in the
and it was
freeway.
So dangerous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and Sorcerer too is like, I mean, you just feel the danger in Friedkin films.
Yeah.
French Connection. I mean, you just feel like it's like so. The stakes are very high, and that someone could actually like legitimately get hurt.
But no, Friedkin has made some amazing films, and he's made some terrible films, which is just like. That's the reality of being a director who worked as long as he did. Because like I've seen Jade, I've seen I've seen when he's really been at the nadir of his capabilities. So
didn't he do it? Well, no, he didn't do who did the second Exorcist?
Oh, that was John. The guy who did Deliverance. Borman.
John Borman.
Yeah.
Which I've not seen so far.
No, I've just seen 3, which was great.
It's pretty good.
I'll see it.
I love Exorcist.
3's good. It's worth watching for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've concluded that we both loved all three of us loved both films. So.
And I'm very, very glad because I wasn't sure how Ravenous would be received, but it seems like.
No, I liked it. I knew I was going to watch it again at some point because I saw it as a kid, and I didn't remember the tone being like that at all. So it was interesting to revisit it and be like, what? But anywaes, yeah. Okay,
well, I just wanted to know what Amy would think. I wanted to know, like, would you like it? I'm so glad that you did.
2 for 2 with that and Roadhouse.
Oh, my God. I mean, watching Roadhouse for the first time in 2024, you waited so long.
Fantastic.
I did the same thing.
Perfect time.
Like 3 weeks ago or something, I watched Roadhouse for the first time, so, yeah.
If that was the only reason for the new one existing, just to get people to see the old one, the good one, then it's worth it.
Mission accomplished. Jake.
Okay, let's do this questionnaire. Whoever wants to answer first, or you can do it in unison if you want. That'd be funny.
That'd be hilarious. It was the same film.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Oh, coffee.
Choose one film for the rest of your life.
My Man Godfrey.
Okay.
I love that movie so much, and it's very positive.
I've never seen it. I don't think I even know what it is.
Oh.
Great screwball comedy.
I would show it to you if I could get it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's, what's his name?
William Powell.
William Powell.
Okay.
I think I would also pick a 30s movie. I would probably pick A Night at the Opera. because I love the Marx Brothers so much, and it just
So-
gives me so much joy.
Or Ball of Fire, Jet.
Yeah, or Ball of Fire. I mean, that too, like a romantic comedy for sure. That would be a good
A romantic
pick.
comedy.
So
Right.
when both of you were on last year, we didn't have the questionnaire going yet when Amy was on, but Jetta, you already answered the questionnaire once.
Did I say that then
And you
too?
said a Night at the
Oh,
Opera. I'm pretty
okay.
sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, because it comes to mind.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
answer then. I've never seen that, Jet.
Well, I mean, the Marx Brothers are so silly and so ridiculous. But
Yeah, I
when
know.
I think it says something great about a movie when you've seen it so many zillions of times and you know the jokes so well, but they just make you laugh so
Like,
hard.
What's Up, Doc?
Yeah, like
Hmm.
That's like that
when
for
you
me.
love it that
Yeah.
much and it just brings you that much happiness every time. Like, there's
Hmm.
something pretty special about that.
Yep.
I was
get it.
trying to figure out what my answer would be for that question, and I think it applies to what you just said, Jetta, because I think for me it would be Dazed and Confused. And I just like all the lines in that. I'm like,
Linklater.
yeah. I love that movie.
Feels like
yeah,
home.
it does. Yeah. It's like a good feeling the whole time.
Hmm.
Okay, if you had to be an animal, which would you choose?
I thought of a flamingo first,
I
so I'll
love
just
it.
say that.
My coworkers
I love
my
the pink.
coworkers asked me something similar to this recently, and I said, well, I don't know, a cat, because I'm moody. There's some times when I just want to sit there and relax and just do my own thing.
That fits
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But cats can be very loving and very,
Totally.
cuddly.
Fits. Yeah.
A cat is a good
That's a
answer.
good one,
yeah.
Jet.
But flamingo is pretty good too. So yeah.
Thanks.
Well,
That was my favorite animal growing
it's a cool
up.
animal. What happens when we die?
Mm.
Oh, well. I mean, I obviously.
Yeah, you're gonna
I
have
mean,
a
I
very
believe in
different
heaven.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Hmm.
so yes.
Heaven.
I mean,
Okay.
heaven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think Woody Allen thinks that when you die, it's just you're dead. Like there's just black.
Yeah.
And
Some
there's
people have said that.
You're like in the ground.
Maybe it's like an endless loop of your favorite movie, so it would be the Night at the Opera over and over.
Okay.
You just get like a
Yeah,
big
that is
projector.
That is very.
That sounds all
interesting.
right.
Like defending your life.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I remember seeing Defending Your Life on TV as a kid and thinking like, I like this. I like the structure. Like I could believe that. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I've abandoned that since,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I like that. Like you go to
I do too.
limbo.
It's very
you
Brooks.
know, you
Uh-huh.
yeah, I like that.
You make a defense. You make a defense of like whether you're a good person or
yeah,
not,
and then you
and they show clips of your life.
fall, and then you
Yeah.
fall in love with Meryl Streep, and you jump across the
Meryl
bus
Streep.
to like get to her, and then you get to go to heaven. Yeah.
Mhm.
Living the dream.
Or dying the
Dying
dream.
dream.
There you go.
Yeah.
Song title that best describes your life.
Hmm.
Wow.
See, this is the kind of thing where I don't have an answer and then I got to think for 10 minutes.
Jetta, what about I'm ready to take a chance again?
Oh my God. You know how much Amy and I love Foul Play? Have you seen Foul Play, Bob?
I don't know what it is.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Goldie
Bob.
Hawn, Chevy Chase, 1978.
Mm.
1978.
Yeah, it's very, very.
Huh.
It's so much fun. San Francisco murder mystery comedy spoof kind of thing. Brian
Okay.
Dennehy. Amy
Mhm.
loves Brian Dennehy.
Really?
I am in love with
Wow.
him. In
Yeah.
love. Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
very fun.
I just thought of
Oh, I
that Barry Manilow. It's a Barry Manilow
Ready
song.
to take a chance again.
But-
Ready to put my
Okay.
love
Yeah.
on the line for you.
With
Yeah,
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've heard that song, and it was in Can't Hardly Wait. That's where I
Oh, okay.
placed
Oh.
it. Yeah.
That's a fun movie.
It's an interesting one to go back to. I'll just say that.
I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing. I've seen bits and pieces on TV.
It is a fun time. Like I love any kind of, one night, one party kind of film, Dazed and Confused. But yeah, it's just one that watching now as an adult, you're like, wow, this was written by like a woman and two men that, were adults, and they thought like all these ideas were a good idea to pursue and present for people. Like, okay. Like I'm sure people hate this term, but it's very problematic.
Okay.
I've had a lot of gay friends tell me that film like traumatized them. So
Okay.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Sorry to bring the house down, but you know.
Well, now
thanks,
I'll have
Bob.
that in mind for when I see it. I'll just
when
have
you
a
watch it, you'll know
perspective,
exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, ooh, that's
I'm
not,
sure.
not good. Yeah.
Oh, I know what I would say for my title. I'm going to say, what's it called? Strange Currencies.
Oh, yes.
The
Oh,
REM
cool.
song.
Okay. Nice.
I love that song, but also that would be emblematic of my life.
Strange Currencies.
Right now. Strange Currencies.
I had the privilege of being in Amy's car not that long ago, and you played it.
Oh.
So
love
there you
that
go.
song so
I've seen
much.
it in action.
Everything I played, Jetta was like, I know this song from like a million years ago.
I'm trying to remember how it goes, and I keep hearing what's the frequency, Kenneth?
Da-da-da-da-da.
Oh!
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That is a good song. That is really good. Yeah. I really love the song with Patti Smith that they did. I forget what it's called.
I don't know. Swart would know this. Definitely Swart.
But look it up and listen to it. Maybe even use it to play out the episode. So, Jetta, you're on.
Great.
You got a song title that best describes your life?
I've been sitting here for all these minutes. I did not actually think of a better one than the foul play one. But
okay.
I think that's
right.
But yeah, ready to take a chance again.
I like that.
Barry Manilow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Or maybe like the other Patti Smith. I was thinking of Scandal, The Warrior.
I don't know it.
Wow.
Wait,
Don't
sorry.
know The Warrior?
Wow.
The other Patti Smith, as in
there's also a Patti. The other Patti Smith spelled PattySmyth, the one who's married to John McEnroe. She was in a band called Scandal.
Oh,
this is pop culture.
I'm sorry, I'm out of the loop.
It's important pop culture. There's a song called The Warrior.
The Warrior. Okay.
I wish I could sing it. I'm a terrible singer.
If you try to sing
what did you
that
tell
would
me
be
yesterday?
Cool.
Oh no! I'm not going to embarrass myself.
Jetta, didn't you tell me you love the song? What did I watch yesterday? An Officer and a Gentleman. And you were like, "Oh, I love that."
I hate that song, but it is like Up Where We Belong, which would be a very bizarre title to describe my life.
Title for your life.
It's
maybe
it's like the ultimate corny love song. That's I think what I said.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But
cool.
yeah, what would actually?
I'm out of song titles.
Is there a better song that I could think of
to describe your life?
I don't know.
Maybe one from Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia, here we go again.
Or Dancing Queen. I don't know.
Take a Chance on Me. Sure.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's
Take a
perfect.
Chance on Me, ABBA, and
Gimme a Man After Midnight. I could just name ABBA songs.
Whoa.
Just name ABBA
Just
songs.
all of
Jetta.
ABBA's greatest hits.
Yeah.
All of their greatest hits.
I do. Yeah.
And then
I could just keep going.
Strange Currencies. Is that what it's called? Strange Currency REM. Okay. Cool song choices. Cool movie choices. I think we dissected them really well, and we got to the heart of each one, more or less. And we discovered that they're both very ambiguous, with many different meanings that could be pulled out of each one, which is why people should rediscover these films and make them less of obscurities that no one has heard of.
Absolutely.
Unbury the hidden gems.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you have either one of you want to plug anything before we go? I mean, Amy, you've got your various podcasts. She Said. Amy's Progress.
And
there's one more, no?
No. I only ever have two at a time. Okay. Like two, because we did comfort films, and then She Said, which has been She Said's been actually very surprisingly nice. I wasn't sure when I started it whether it was going to work or not, because I didn't know a lot of women on Letterboxd, and it's been really nice.
I love it.
I feel like I'm a lot more passionate too in a different way
awesome.
Than I am when I'm talking to dudes.
Yeah.
Not that I don't love you guys.
No.
It's nice. Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's nice sometimes.
Good to even the field.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jetta, do you have anything that you want to plug? I mean, you've got an excellent letterbox, as you, Amy, where you both review films very meticulously and passionately. But is there anything else?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I was on Unwatchables recently with Mark and Seth.
Right.
I was going to say that.
Delightful.
That was actually like one of the harder episodes to listen to, because I mean, it is a bad film, The Good Son, but I did really love it as a kid. And I was like, it was one of those things where you're like, man, leave it alone a little bit, you know?
Well, I mean,
but you're right.
Mark is,
you can pick apart what doesn't work in a movie, but also be just like so bowled over by what's silly and stupid. And just like, you know, you can have all the different sides of it. Cause boy, oh boy, Macaulay Culkin he's evil. He's so evil in that. It's hard not to laugh when you talk about that. But I mean, it's entertaining.
I can't remember who said it, but one of you called it Silence of the Lambs for kids. And
probably Mark.
I think that was like the joke, and everyone laughed, and I was like, but that's what it was to me, you know?
Poor Bob.
Well, I said it was like Home Alone 3, because he's like the same character. He's a little sociopath.
That's true.
Yes,
that's
Kevin
true.
McAllister.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
so that's the main thing.
Yeah. But yes, check out the Unwatchables. Check out Amy's podcast. Check out their letterbox. I'll put links to all of those in the YouTube, Spotify, wherever else this can be heard. And yeah, thank you both so much for your time. I'd love to have you both back on next season. So I'll be in touch to do that, and I will continue listening and following what you both do, as should everyone listening right now.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. Always a pleasure.
So glad to be on.
Yeah. Okay. You two have a great day. All right.
You too.
Bye.